DJ Scream, heavy in the streets.
We gon' get it, we gon' get it, we gon' get it. We gon' get it, we gon' get it. Get it in blood. Get it in blood. We gon' get it, we gon' get it, we gon' get it. We gon' get it, we gon' get it. Get it in blood. Get it in blood.
Hood rich.
Get it out the mud.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast. And on this one, we're coming at you with some more appetizers, and we're talking about the event that happened on Saturday, January 20th, 2024. It was UFC 297, Sean Strickland versus Dricus Duplessis, and so yeah, that was on the 20th, and that was at the venue was Scotia Bank Arena in City, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and there was 18,559 in attendance with 7.8, almost 7.9 million gate, and so this was what this event was, because it was one of the events in January. This was the first pay-per-view event, first numbered event of 2024. So just initially, thinking, oh, it's the first event of 2024, you would think that it would be a really good card and there would be a lot of elite fighters and big names on the card, but that's really where this card kind of fell short, in my opinion. On top of it not having like great names, there weren't really like any exciting finishes or submissions or anything like that. And I'm talking on the main card. Almost almost all 5 fights on the main card almost went to decision. So on top of it not being the most exciting and most enjoyable main card, UFC 297 numbered card in a while, you could definitely say it was one of the longest, because out of the 5 fights on the main card, only one fight ended up going to a finish, and it was finished at 4 minutes and 45 seconds of the third round, the final round. So there was only 15 seconds left before that fight was over anyways. So it was definitely a long card. If you wanted to get your UFC, you wanted to get it in on one event, you definitely got a lot of it. Maybe nothing too exciting, but they definitely you got the marinade definitely in it. And so let's just get into this, because I'm almost wanting to skip ahead and get into the main card and tell you what I thought about the main card. But we'll get to it. So. Let's start the main card here, the first fight on the main card. So this is a UFC 297, Strickland versus Duplessis. And so the first fight on the main card is a featherweight bout between Movsar Evloev versus Arnold Allen. And my initial prediction for this fight is that it would be probably a pretty close fight, and that it would be kind of like a stalemate of kind of who wants to take who to the ground first, or who has the better wrestling skills, And so I originally picked Arnold Allen. I was kind of just going off of more of the name, more veteran, well known, But both these fighters had kind of similar records, and showed that they had a lot of durability throughout their career, never being knocked out or submitted. So I just figured that's probably kind of what Arnold Allen would do. He would just kind of edge Movsar Evloev, just edge out the win, maybe just because he's a more well-known fighter, if nothing else. But yeah, so I thought it was just going to be kind of a boring decision win by Arnold Allen, which it's not really that's really not far off from what it was, because it did end up going to decision. It was a unanimous decision for Mazvar Evolov. It was 29-28, 29-28, 29-28. And if you watch this fight, there's probably no one that can really argue that Mazvar Evolov won, because really when the fight first started, they were pretty even, pretty even in just kind of kickboxing, and the striking game was pretty even. And just to get the edge and put himself ahead in the fight, Mazvar Evolov started going for some takedowns and getting some takedowns and holding Arnold Allen down. Nothing ever looked like he was all in that much danger of being finished by ground and pound or submission or anything. But just the appearance of trying to get takedowns and going for takedowns, and then if everything else is kind of equal, I mean, obviously he's added something to the match that edges him out the win over Arnold Allen. So I couldn't argue with that much, but hey, at least I did predict that it was going to go to decision because of the fact that these are two very durable fighters and veteran fighters. I'm sorry if people think I'm getting distracted at all. I'm looking out this window that's right in front of me, and there's a squirrel like peeking in here. So sorry if anyone thought I was distracted. He's distracting me right now, honestly. But anyway, so let's continue here. Some comic relief there for you. He's just eyeballing me. All right, so on to the second fight of the main card. We had a middleweight bout between Chris Curtis versus Marc-Andre Barrial, and it ended up going a split decision. And kind of interesting judging, kind of off of this fight, because two of the cards had it 30-27, 30-27 for Curtis, for Chris Curtis, so that they didn't really have much question as to whether he won this fight. But then one of the judges had it 29-28, had 2 rounds for Marc-Andre Barrial. And but yeah, this was a fight that I thought, I was thinking, regardless of who was going to win, I thought someone was going to get knocked out. Marc-Andre Barrial, a good number of his finishes have come by knockout, and then Chris Curtis, I think he has like 17 knockouts. But this fight ended up kind of being more of a stalemate more than anything. I think it was kind of similar to the first fight. They just kind of canceled each other out because they both do the same thing very well, and that was the counter striking. They were both looking to try to get a counter strike and catch someone coming in and get the knockout, because that's historically what they've both been really good at, especially Chris Curtis. So you just didn't there didn't seem to be like a lot of uh, like, I guess, concern, about putting on a better performance. There was no initiative really out of either one of the fighters to maybe try to change up their stance or the way they're throwing punches, or but yeah, that's not really what happened. And yeah, it ended up I ended up picking the right fighter in Chris Curtis, but he did not go on to get the knockout. So that the start the pay-per-view, it's had not too overly exciting fights, but maybe moving on to the third fight, maybe got a little glimmer of some excitement. So the third fight on the card is a welterweight bout between Neil Magny and Mike Malott. And so I picked Mike Malott originally. I thought at some point in this fight that he would be better, maybe even in the striking, or be able to take Neil Magny down at will. And I thought he was going to end up getting a submission in this fight. But yeah, that's like not completely. That's completely the opposite of what happened. And I'll give myself a little like asterisk, like star here, because I mentioned that Neil Magny, sometimes when he's faced up against the right type of skilled fighter, like the right skilled fighter, he can put on a master class and completely dominate people sometimes, because he's such a well-rounded veteran and had so many fights in the UFC that sometimes it's just the the skill, the veteran uh, ability, from having so many fights that leads to a win. And that's what happened in this fight. So I picked Mike Malott to get the submission, but he ended up losing to Neil Magny. Neil Magny defeated him by TKO punches at 4:40. So this is the fight that finished 15 seconds before the end of the round. So it was 4:45 of the third round. And this was an interesting fight, early on, like the first two rounds, kind of, you probably would have thought that Mike Malott was kind of winning. He was going for takedowns. He was looking a little bit better in the striking game. But then, like towards the end of the end of the second round, you could really tell that he was starting to get like really tired and exhausted. And on one of the towards the end of the fight, Neil Magny kind of came in kind of crazy, throwing punches, and that was one of the few times Mike Malott was able to take him down. But then going into the third round, it ended up the game plan for Mike Malott completely got flipped on its head when Neil Magny caught him with a couple of good shots and then took him down and finished him with some very uh, violent ground and pound. Some people might have called that a bit of a late stoppage, but the ref definitely gave him Mike Malott every chance to come back in that fight. So yeah, Neil Magny did what I thought. I mentioned this was something that he could do, and he definitely did. He performed. He put on a master class of Mike Malott. He looked like at the end of that fight when he was exhausted, and Neil Magny looked like he could go for a 5 mile run. It was just he just completely overwhelmed him at the end of that fight. So on the whole card, that was probably the most exciting moment of any of these fights on the main card. There's a lot of people that really thought the Dricus Drew Plessis Sean Strickland main event was some like great fight or something. It did win fight of the night, Dricus Du Plessis Sean Strickland, but none of these other fights were on there for knockout of the night or submission of the night. All right, so let's go on to the co-main event, and so it's a women's bantamweight championship bout for the vacant championship, and that's a bout between Raquel Penning versus Mira Bueno Silva, and that fight ended up going to decision. It went to decision, and it was 49-46 Pennington, 49-46 Pennington, and 49-45. So there must have been a 10-8 round in there somewhere. I guess one of the judges had it, and that was 5 minutes, 25 minutes, 5 rounds. And I originally I predicted this to be a decision, go decision, but I thought Bueno Silva would be able to get it, just because thinking that she's maybe a little more younger, fresher, up and coming talent to Raquel Pennington, who's been around, definitely been around the block and back. So I thought it was going to be a decision that Bueno Silva would be able to pull out the decision, or slight chance. I thought that she had better ground game than what she ended up showing in this game. That she would be a slight chance of maybe getting a choke or a submission, which she did kind of late in the fight. She threw out a couple desperation chokes and ninja chokes and guillotines, but was never really able to really sink one in. And I've kind of grown some dislike from Bueno Silva now after the way this fight went, because it was kind of like kickboxing, to start out, and then Raquel Pennington started kind of reverting back to her ground game, which she showed about in the fourth round or so. She started like definitely wearing on Miro Bueno Silva. Once they got to the championship rounds, the fourth round, Miro Bueno Silva was completely gassed. So I'm a little I'm off any type of bandwagon I was on for her, because she just was like completely out of it. Like they should have stopped the fight really in the fifth round, because in the fourth round she got taken down and Raquel Pennington had her in a head and arm triangle choke, but it was never really that deep or that tight, you know. So it was basically just an opportunity for Mara Bueno Silva just to rest. You know, she never really tried to get out of the choke or get in a better position. She was just kind of keeping Raquel Pennington in a half guard so she couldn't get the choke in completely. But then in the fifth round, they wrestle around a little bit, and Mira Buena Silva gets like knocked down, and she's just literally just laying on her back like this for like 2 minutes, you know, just kind of throwing kicks, and Raquel Pennington kicking her leg. She didn't try to get up or do anything, even though she had to have known that she was behind in that fight. So that was pretty disappointing, and I don't think that helps with something that'll help your reputation or your argument for possibly getting another title shot, because it showed that Bueno Silva can't go 5 rounds without being literally exhausted to the point that she couldn't get up. There was one moment in between rounds where it was showing her where she just looked completely out of it. Like, not that she'd been rocked or anything, but just she looked completely exhausted and just completely taken to her last grasp of energy and air. I almost felt like that must have been either at like the end of the third or the end of the fourth round where she just looked like hell. I was like almost waiting for him to throw in the flag on us, throw in the towel for her. But so that wasn't exciting, and how this card has went. I've only uh, got one of three. I've gone 1-3 on this card out of four fights, so 1-3. So I hadn't done too good. I've predicted how the fights would go, like the outcomes of them, but not the winners very well. Okay, so let's get to the main event. This is really the only reason this card was worth watching at all. It's I have to question some people or the UFC honestly if they're expecting people to pay $80 for a card like this. I think I think they're trying to save some quality fights up so that that UFC 300 can be like the best card of the year, which it needs to be. You know, it needs to be like UFC 100 and UFC 200 that had like Brock Lesnar on the card. But anyways, so let's get to this the main event here. We had the main event, which is a middleweight championship bout between it was the champion Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis, the challenger. And I actually thought that Dracus du Plessis would maybe get the finish in this fight. I thought that he was like that's who I picked Dracus du Plessis to win. So he did win, but he didn't win how I thought. I thought he was going to get a finish. I thought he was going to get a knockout or maybe get Sean Strickland in a compromising position and maybe get the submission. But that's not how this fight went. Drake du Plessis, he did win, so I can take the credit for that. But it went split decision, and it was 47-48 for Sean Strickland, and then it was 48-47, 48-47 for Dracus du Plessis. So it's just a round here, round there, judge here, judge there, split decision. So there's definitely a lot of people out there that thought this fight was really, really close. And I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, you probably because it went the way I went and just watching out of judging it, but you've picked the fighter that you want to win, so you're a little biased, I guess, in those situations. But I'd probably have given, I guess I'd have given Sean Strickland the first round and probably the fifth round, giving him the first round because that's when he did, caused all the early damage to Dracus du Plessis' eye and the swelling, and he was just eating Dracus du Plessis' eye up with that jab. And that's really all he had for most of the fight was just jabs. You know, he didn't really incorporate much else than just kind of throwing a jab and maybe a power shot every once in a while. And I think maybe went for maybe just like one takedown in the whole fight, but didn't finish it. the thing that put Dracus du Plessis over the top for me. So obviously, then I have him winning the second, third, and fourth round. And I think just the entire fight, basically, Dracus du Plessis was the one constantly coming forward. He was throwing body kicks, throwing head kicks constantly. Uh, and then he was going for takedowns as well. He was getting takedowns. I think he uh, accomplished, finished six takedowns. But I will admit, when he was getting the takedowns, once he got the takedowns, he wasn't causing any damage. You know, he wasn't getting any ground and pound or any chance of getting in a submission or anything like that. Really, I mean, honestly, Sean Strickland was just pretty much just standing right back up every time he was getting taken down. But I think it was just the the constant forward moving and pushing the action and just you throw those you got to throw those takedowns in there for a little bit and people want to scream about the damage and stuff called. I mean there was damage caused in the first round that caused Dracus du Plessis' eyes to all swell up, but I mean there was some good damage caused to Sean Strickland as well. I guess that would have been that was either the third or the fourth round where he got the cuts around his eye. He had three or four cuts around his eye. I think some people think it came from a punch, but some people think that it was from a headbutt. That's kind of a funny thing after the fight during in some press conferences where Sean Strickland was saying he seemed pretty cordial after the fight and after he lost the belt and all that, but he seemed kind of changed. His emotions had changed a little bit after they had a little while to marinate. Because he was saying, "Oh, I could have said I could because of the headbutt causing all the blood in my eyes. I can't see, therefore I can't continue." And he was talking like, "Oh, if he wanted to, he could have made the fight go to no contest." And how he wants like a rematch with him at at I think both of them are kind of saying this, possibly a rematch with each other at UFC 300. And I think Dricus du Plessis actually wants uh, Israel Adonijay more. And I personally would like to see that more. I was never on the Sean Strickland bandwagon, but I mean, he just, other than the first round, he seemed to just kind of not have much in his arsenal. He seemed kind of hesitant, and while Dracus du Plessis was winging punches like this, crazy punches like that, kind of looking like Michael Chandler, just wading in, throwing punches and getting hit anyways, and then he'd back off and come back in, throw some body kicks, throw some leg kicks. Most of those were, I'll give Sean Strickland credit, most of those got checked, but he was throwing those, landing good body kicks, landing head kicks, grazing head kick, blocked and grazed head kicks. So I'd just given it to Dracus du Plessis. I agree with the decision, and I mean Sean Strickland, he started turning it on in the fifth round. I give him the fifth round. He started turning it on and throwing caution to the wind, but it was just too late, and we'll just have to see if that being a close matchup leads to a sequel, a rematch in this fight. Because I mean, even Dana White was saying that he thought it was a 3-2 Strickland, uh, but uh, 3-2 Strickland, and hell, I was 2-3 UFC 297. So hey, it is what it is. Uh, but anyways, let's see. Just trying to go look when the next card is 297. So anyways, that's about all I have for you this evening. The next card will be UFC 297, and that's Volkanovski versus Tapora, and that's February 17th. So it's like pretty much exactly a month from now. But yeah, I'll be excited for that. Alexander Volkanovski versus Ilya Tapora. Yeah, that should Marab Dashvili versus Henry Cejudo. That should be exciting. Jeff Neal versus Ian Machado Gary. just those three couple fights, and then there's a heavyweight fight with Justin Tafa, Marco Rodrigo de Lama. Like every main card, every pay-per-view card, I've said this before, should have a heavyweight bout on it. That right there just gives you the potential that someone might get brutally knocked out or get their arm broken off or something. So it's just it's negligence not having a heavyweight fight on every card. But yeah, just reading that off in a month from now, that card looks better than the one we just had, and just actual viewing pleasure, I'm sure it will be because that card was, hell, it's just now 2024, but that was the worst card of the year so far, in my opinion. But anyways, I think that's all I have for you. So again, I get a check, please.